Tabitha, good morning. How are you? Happy New Year. Have we caught up since I last saw you? Anyway, Tabitha, whilst you're at it, let me just boil a kettle of water here and then I will get to say a proper good morning. But if you're just joining me, hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Gladys, and over here I make simple, informative tutorials to help you navigate cake decorating easily. And today we are jumping straight into cake decorating 101. And that is, we are going to fill and layer these cakes. It's a 2-tier cake. I'm going to talk you through all the things that you need, what you need to do before you even get to this point, and then we were going to get into doing the thing, which is filling and stacking this cake up. If I have time, I'm going to talk you through my ingredients and everything I have on my worktop today, just so that this can be a sort of learning resource for you, so you can undertake your own decorating. On the main channel, there is, well, on the channel, I say on the main channel, I mean on the homepage, you have long form formats where there are different types of videos, from baking vlogs, my days as a baker, to recipe, simple classic recipes, and general things about buttercream and everything. This channel is a one-stop shop for all things cake. We eat cake, we love the subject of cake, talking ingredient, tools, and everything you need. So if you haven't joined us, please do consider subscribing, hit the notification bell, because we're here on a live as best as we can. When I'm busy, it's busy here, but when I'm extremely busy, I'm probably like, ugh. But I'm not going to bore you too much. There is Tabitha in our chat. Tabitha, we haven't caught up. Tabitha, let me just boil this kettle because I need this water to boil for me, and then yeah, we can talk some more. How is life in Tabitha? You know what, I wanted to say how is life in New York, and then I remembered you're not in New York. Okay. Where are you again? You know what, I'm probably terrible for remembering the American places, but as long as you are not anywhere near LA where the fires are, it is a pleasure to have you. Okay, so whilst we're boiling the kettle, what do we have here? We have some lemon curd flavored Swiss meringue buttercream. We have chocolate buttercream, which is going to fill both cakes. Oh damn, now that we're talking about it, let me get the jam that is going to be used to fill the chocolate cake. I'll be back in a moment. Well, there is Oregon. Oh, you know what? The subject of the fire is very, very sad and disheartening, which kind of makes it very difficult to talk about, because we are a baking channel. But more than anything, I just wanted this to be a safe place away from the reality of our world. So I am sending everyone who is affected by the fires so much love. My prayers are with you. I hope to God everything goes well with you guys. But the firemen from Oregon, God bless them, they've done well, making such a sacrifice to go and support. I must admit, I am not in the news about it a lot. I know there are fires, I know it is bad, but I've just made a conscious effort to safeguard my sanity, because there's just so much happening in our world. But if you are affected by the fires, my heart goes up to you, and prayers up for all of you. Now let's jump into cake decorating 101 whilst this kettle is noisy behind me. It will stop in a minute. So over here, what do we have? We have a cake board, cake drum, Call it a board, call it a drum. This is a foil covered, a silver foil covered cake board and cake or drum. There are different ones you can pick up on the market. Some of them are masonite, some of them are MDF. Depending on what you are doing, it will determine what you will need. Plus, access matters. The MDF and masonite ones, I have used them. I don't use them a lot, but I do use them. But I do settle for MDF when I am making, say, a 3D cake. So that in itself is something to know. So I'm using a foil covered cake drum here. But the reason why I'm using this is just to serve as a base surface. Over that, I have an acrylic. The acrylic is just going to be a barrier between the base here, because you will find that this particular board here, the middle is the foil has come off and it's exposed. So I don't want any of that exposure to come into contact with my cake board or the cake. So this particular acrylic board serves as a barrier between my cake board, which is this cake drum. It is going to serve as a barrier between the cake and the surface on which I'm working. And it also helps to seal the cake in, and it gives it sort of structure, stability. So this is the cake drum, directly going to be the diameter of the cake. You'll see how I use that. This is just a barrier to separate the exposed board, this one underneath, and this particular card. When you're making cakes, I will almost always stress that it is important for you to have an understanding of the choices you are making, because the objective for what you are decorating will determine the choices you are making. For instance, if I went for a flimsy or thin board here, when I come to lifting the cake, it will move, which means the cake might be unstable, and it is likely to cause the cake to either shift or likely cause cracks. Talking about cracks, I have discussed the reasons and how cracks happen in cake decorating in a different video, which is on the main channel a little while ago. You can check that out. So the board here is to give me sturdiness, to give me support, stability, and to help with working effectively and efficiently on the cake without any issues. And that is the decision here. Now for the tools that I am going to be using, I'm going to be using a few different ones, but key to filling a cake will be, say for a beginner, it's called an offset spatula. The offset spatula, the curve here, is to give you some sort of control over what you are going to be doing. There are different sizes and lengths for them. You can pick them up on Amazon. These came as a pack of 3 for me. I have them linked on my Amazon shop, which you will find in the link when I come to optimizing it. Or check my other videos and you will find a link to the shop front where I have organized some of these tools for you to pick them up. Depending on what cake you're working, the diameter and size will determine what you need over here. And if you're watching this back on replay as like trying to find out about cake decorating, maybe perhaps here's a tip: watch this at 1.75 or 1.5 speed so that it moves quickly. You will still get the information, but at least you're not like sitting through the bore of it. So on my cake drum, I am going to have some ganache. I use ganache here. Now, you would have seen some videos where you will do the central dowel and all of that. I'm not central doweling this cake, at least at this point. If I do change my mind, I'll probably come back to it. But on top of the cake drum, I have some ganache here. And the ganache will serve to hold. Now let's move the cake to this side a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't fall over. Okay, Lollipop, I didn't know you had a shop. I will look in a bit. Currently on no, it's not like a shop. It's like the Amazon shop front, if you like. I've organized some bits on there. I don't know, am I the only person who just doesn't like to do the self-promotion thing and talk about, but this is a helpful resource for you. It's the shop front, the virtual shop front, where I organize things that people continuously ask me about, really. So hopefully that is helpful. Right, the other thing I was just about to do with the water boiling, right, so you can see that the cake is nearly the same diameter as the base over here. And if you're a beginner, filling the cake might need you doing this with a bit of measurements. And the measurement, you can use a scoop or a piping bag, which will make sure that your filling is very level. I have done this a few times, so I'm just going to go in the spatula in the warm water. You will see why in a minute, because the warm blade helps to spread the buttercream easily. And that is simply because I made the buttercream overnight and I left it on a countertop, so it's kind of chilled out a little bit, so trying to spread it can be awfully difficult. At this point, depending on what you're trying to do, you want to level this out. I have spoken about how to level or fill a cake 3 ways in some of my very formative videos on here, so you want to check that out. You want to make sure that leveling a cake is almost like the skeleton or the base work of the cake. If you don't level and fill your cake right, you might not end up with a perfectly shaped, perfectly set, look, a decorated cake you like, because you can't turn that around. So the beginning stages is very key to the outcome. But over here, I am adding a little more buttercream, because you know why? Watch me. I am digging the buttercream out in the middle. The reason being, I am going to be adding lemon curd to the middle of the cake here. And for that, I am just trying to make space for the curd. Now, if you're a beginner, I am only doing this simply because of experience and confidence. I've done this over and over again. That is not like me sitting on my high horse or anything, but I've done this over 10 years now, so it comes with some sort of privilege, if you like. But if you're new to baking and decorating and you're unsure, use a piping bag to create a border here. The border, or the barrier, also called the dam, stops any soft fillings, because curd here is a soft filling. Curd and jam and the rest of it is a soft filling. And if you're not very cautious about how you use soft fillings, they seep out and then they can cause stability issues for you and the cake. So for that reason, soft fillings don't hold themselves. So you want to make sure you have a barrier that will hold the soft filling inside. I mean, I remember making this cake for this couple. And by the way, this cake is for a couple I have discussed on here on this channel before. And it was a wedding cake. I made the cake, and then the base tier ended up talking about it even makes me anxious. The base tier didn't turn out right, but the couple were really, really gracious. I even offered them a refund and they declined. So I offered them a replacement cake for their anniversary. They turned it down and held it up for a special milestone birthday, which is what I am doing today. So, I mean, I remember working on this cake because this is the same cake or a similar cake they had. Well, the flavoring is the same one they had for their wedding. So having to remake it is sort of an ode to their wedding. And because I initially offered for them to have it on their anniversary, which will be this a replacement flavor. So anyway, saying that, the cake flavors are exactly what they had for their wedding. And I remember making this back in the summer of 2023. Gosh, you want me to tell you? When I tell you, having experience in cake making will teach you patience. Oh, patience, patience, patience. God.
the cake was well, not the cake, the buttercream. This is Swiss meringue buttercream. But you know, in the summer when we have the short 3-day hot weather where everybody is hot and bothered, try making a cake in that weather. Try. And you will see it takes balls to do that. And I tried it, and boy oh boy, did I not know. Whoo, I learned. Ugh. Will I do that again? At least we're making it in the winter now, aren't we? Well, sort of in the winter. Is it winter? What's the season we're in? I'm confused now. Oh well, if you know, let me know, okay? Because I'm a bit confused about whether we're in winter, we're in summer. Definitely not the summer. Okay, how did we get here? By the way, you can see we are on the 3rd layer here, and there goes another layer. Whew. Lollipop, you are my person. Lollipop says that 3 days of English weather where everybody is hot and bothered, she reckons nobody should do anything. We should all go on holiday. I think I would if some people didn't decide that instead of a holiday, they want to have a wedding and then choose me. So I am the unwilling participant in all of this. I never asked to be part of anybody's wedding, except I have gone and set up a whole business that thrives on being an unwilling participant. That said, I actually, you know what? I don't anymore. Any bookings for that time of the year, I'm like, nope. Especially first, second week of July. It's a no to the no. Because that 28-degree heat, who wants to be making a cake in that weather? Certainly not me. Do you? Okay. So this is filled out. I kind of feel like I could have added a bit more curd. Whew. Ice cream cake. The one I want to eat. Is it lollipop? Or the one I am sharing with you? Ice cream cake isn't a bad one, but you know what? I actually just want to sleep. I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to do anything because that weather is not anybody's like friend. Anyway, on a serious note, as you can see, we have filled the cake, but what is even more critical at this point here is ensuring that not only is the cake filled right, but you can make sure that the cake is level all the way out. I'm not so fast about that right now. Perhaps at this point, a few tips. If you get to this point of the cake decorating process and it's, let me just wash my hand and I'll talk to you. So, if you get to this point of the cake decorating process, if you have used a piping bag, you'll find that the buttercream inside is a lot more settled and it's cleaner. It doesn't matter for me because experience has taught me a few things I do, and my process is always going to be slightly different from the process you know, right? So let me just explain the intention around what I've done here. We have 4 layers of cake. This is about 1.25 inches each. Tie it together. This cake is probably standing about 8 inches. Yeah, this is 7 inches high here. So for this cake right here that we see, this is exactly a 7-inch. It's an 8-inch cake, an 8-inch cake standing at 7 inches high. Now this board here is supporting the cake whilst also creating a barrier for the cake to not be exposed. That said, this crumbs here, I'm going to come back and trim this down, not only to get a cleaner surface area, which means that all this part that you see here won't matter, because once the cake is settled and you trim it down, it is a lot more clean. So you'll see what I mean. But that said, trimming it also allows me the opportunity to create a small barrier here, a small space in the board surface and the cake, which will then be filled by my ganache. That will help, because this is going to be a marble fondant cake. So I have a few considerations to make. That said, at this point in time, I'm going to wrap the cake up in cling film and then put it in the refrigerator. And that is because, where is the cling film? Okay, right. Why am I wrapping it in cling film? To preserve moisture and to reduce it from being exposed in the fridge. And that is because there's conversations about freezing and refrigerating cakes. They are two different things and they affect your cakes differently. I mean, if I was just leaving this in the fridge for, let's say, half an hour to an hour, I probably will leave it this way, because my cake is my fridge is exclusively for cakes anyway. So I don't have any problems leaving the cake this way in a fridge. The issue is that fridges are optimized. Certain fridges generally are optimized for drawing out moisture, which leads to preservation of your elements or food ingredients or stuff that you put in the fridge generally. So when you put a cake in the fridge longer than you need it to be, without covering it or finding a way to seal its exposure in the fridge, what will happen is that it is going to lose moisture and it's going to be a sort of crumbly, drier cake. Now, in reality, that is unlikely to happen if you leave the cake in there for maybe a couple of hours, as in 2 to 3 hours. The effects are not that drastic. We're talking days. If you're going to leave a cake in the fridge for at least 24 hours, seal it off so that it is not exposed to the air in the fridge. That said, are you supposed to keep your cake in the fridge longer than you need? I would say it's down to preference. Noting that the difference between refrigerating a cake is always going to be different from freezing a cake, because freezing a cake, depending on how you do it, it's going to help enhance moisture actually, as against actually losing moisture. Now, I'm not talking about people keeping cakes in fridge for a long time that at some point they actually depreciate in quality. I'm not talking about that, but there's room for actually optimizing the crumb integrity and texture of the cake for moisture when you freeze it. For instance, I think on the internet sometimes people are up in arms when they do not understand it, and it's probably because of the lack of education and understanding of it. The science of it, which I can't explain because I'm not a scientist, suggests that if you bake a cake fresh, leave it to set so that you can handle it. If you wrap it quickly in cling film whilst it is still sort of warm, it traps in the moisture that would have had to escape for the cake to cool. So by wrapping it in a cling film, traps all that moisture back in, and then by putting it in the freezer means that it cools whilst it is still within an enclosure. By so doing, the steam settles and ends up adding moisture naturally to your cake, enhancing your moisture quality and integrity, the crumb integrity of your cake. I mean, that's the simple aspect of it. But I'm not talking about people just freezing cakes for the sake of freezing for months and months and months. Because depending on, whilst you can do that to not the detriment of the cake, it's actually perfectly acceptable to do that. The problem is that if you do that without doing it well, there is a way to do that well where your taste and crumb integrity may still sustain. But say if you locked your cake in a freezer that is stuffed with stuffy food items like strong smelling cheese, hot smelly curries and different sorts of things, they will be absorbed into the cake, which will affect the taste quality of it. But that aside, if your freezer was exclusive for fridge, well cleaned out, and then you wrapped your cake in cling film, wrapped it in layers of foil to stop freezer burn, and then kept it in a container to freeze it, I mean, a cake will sustain for up to a year in a freezer. So yeah, that is enough of me banging on about that. The intention was just to wrap this up, and look at me, I've just gone off on a tangent. Let's come back. For those of you in the chat, well, Lollipop. Oh, Lollipop. Is your address hard to find then? I noticed that in your chat you were saying something about your address being inaccessible. You don't live on a canal boat, do you? Oh, well, I could go on a can only imagine that everyone spend. Okay, ice cream cake. Bet. Oh, Kurt, I'm sorry, I'm just seeing your message right now. I am so sorry. Hannah and the pups. What do you want right now? Do you want some cake? Tabitha, I know 28 degrees, I agree. I don't want to bake. I want to make a picnic and go play in the river. Tabitha, I think you and Lollipop can do that because I'm do you see me? I can't swim, okay? I don't want to hang up with you at the river, okay? I'm kidding, right? Yeah, 28 degrees here is worse than somewhere in the world, because the 28 degree here is that you are looking at very, very dry heat that almost feels like you are stood at the gateway of hell. You know what? When the British summer rolls around, it makes me want to be a good Christian, because I can't live in hell. Okay? I just cannot. Tapita, you're a good person. I'll come to the beach with you, sis. Okay? Okay. Lollipop. A slow walk around Aldi. Yep. You know what? What do I do when it is that cold? You just go shopping, right? And then you stop at the freezer section. Like the fridge and freezer section. Oh, Aldi is so good. Okay? Aldi and Lidl. The fridge freezer section. Right, so this is done. I'm gonna leave this to the back here, and then can you believe we have another one to go? We have, because this is a 2-tier cake, by the way. Same here. We have, this time I don't have the board. I have a cake card. We're talking what one does in the hot weather. For me, like I said, the 28 degree sun in England gets me thinking about my values and what a Christian I should be. Because you know, if you don't act right and you end up in hell, you will not survive that heat, okay? Anyway, that aside, we are doing the chocolate part, and again the same principles apply, except this buttercream is a little softer than I need it to be, and it is going to have jam in there. So here is me and jam in the middle. This chocolate cake, this chocolate is really dense. It's soft, but it is dense. And I almost have to like check what I'm doing so that I don't have it spilling everywhere. Right. Now I'm just going to go in here and just scrape that side out. There you go. And then we are doing the same thing again. This is a very tricky one here, especially if you're a beginner. So like I said, I really encourage you to understand and master the techniques before you even plan on doing this. Okay, but that said, I have different videos on here discussing how you can do this. Right, so this is, yeah, this is going to be a 3-layered chocolate cake that we have here. And let's see how tall that stands. Yeah, that's about 5 inches here. Yeah, there you go. Okay, we have some extra cakes. The reason why I have reduced this to 3 layers is because proportion matters to me when the cake is standing. This is 7 inches high. If I added this on top of the cake, it's going to be too tall. And actually, I just want it. I think it's just a visual and aesthetic thing for me, really. Because if I added that, it's like you have a whole taller cake sitting on top of the bottom tier. But I just want the proportions to be solid for me. So we have that. I mean, that's about 37s, 47s. And then this is about 20-ish, if you like, 15 to 18 7. So that's about 57s altogether. So that should be all right over here. And we're going to wrap that in cling film again. And I think it will be at this point that I could be wrong, but we have literally, people, literally just hit 7K subscribers. 7,000 of you in a stadium is like huge, isn't it? Thank you, all of you. I know every time I say the number, I almost have to add that. I know in YouTube numbers, 7K is like so minuscule, but it isn't. It really isn't. Because every look, okay. So can I tell you some of the problems you could have as I am, well, I'm not just finding out. I knew this would happen anyway. The consistency of your buttercream has a tendency to affect your cake adversely in terms of its stability. And structure. So as you can see, because the layers are so thick and the buttercream was very soft, you have the cake towering down on the buttercream in here, which is then pushing the buttercream out, causing your cake to bulge, which is why it is always important to let your cake settle. So for me, because this, I know this would happen with soft buttercream, what I am going to do is when I refrigerate the cake and the buttercream settles with the cake, when I come back and trim it, the bulging and all of that will set and you have a beautifully trimmed, well-structured cake. So this probably goes to answer to some of you who do not understand why custom cake makers cannot make a turnaround in 24 hours. Depending on the cake. Every time a cake maker does a quick turnaround like that, they are taking a risk on many factors. Is it doable? Yes. Should it be prevented? Yes. And the reason is there are so many things and processes one has to go through to achieve a perfectly good looking cake. So whilst it is still okay to have a cake presented, made, baked, and sorted within 24 hours, it's probably advisable to give it maybe 24 to 48 turnaround. The reason being, when you bake the cake, you want the crumb to settle properly, pushing out every air that is in it before you come to stacking it. When you stack the cake, at every stage of the process of your decorating, you should allow the cake to settle before you move on to the next phase. Working on a cake with such a quick and closely timed turnaround means that some of these processes, when skipped, will eventually adversely affect your cake. Now, depending on your experience and confidence, there are a way around it. And if I had just this single tiered cake to make, which is due to be eaten tonight, baked last night, filled this morning, I can probably get away with setting this cake up quickly, coming back to trim, and then getting it ready and out for, say, 4 p.m. And that's okay. And that's less than a 12 to 24 hour turnaround. What I am saying is that if you're a beginner and you're just starting your baking journey, I will encourage you to give yourself so much time. The longer a cake spends on the decorating table does not in itself impact on the quality of the cake directly. Of course, if I stayed on my decorating table for another 4 to 5 days, will you be risking the quality of the cake? Not exactly. Depends on experience, understanding of recipe, how your recipe bakes, your preservative methods, and all the things that comes into place. So a quick note here to sum up my point to any beginner out here is that time is the thing that is going to help you correct your mistakes when they happen, and also help to settle you when the mistakes happen. Because I'll tell you this, over 10 years of baking and decorating, I'm always having like crisis in the kitchen. Okay, crisis that I have been open to share with you. I have cake fails videos, but as my skills and everything else I'm doing are diversified and changing, there's a lot less of that. But I can guarantee you, I have had cakes like slipping and sliding in the kitchen, and I'm swearing at 2 a.m. and wondering what my life choices are. I can tell you, it will happen to you. Okay, there are things that are within your control in the cake decorating process, and there are absolutely things that you can never control, like the weather, like the choice of buttercream a customer chooses. If a customer came and told you they wanted a fresh cream cake, supposing you offer that cake, trust me, it will slip and slide on a hot weather day, because fresh cream is very, very tender and doesn't have structure and tends to collapse, depending on how you derive your recipe and recipe ingredient combination. That said, if you decided to do that on a very tight time limit and the cake is slipping and sliding and you have it tiered, oh boy, you wait, you'll see. So my dear, I say that to say, if you're a beginner, give yourself time, breathe, and make lots of cups of tea. It will see you through. That's all. Tapita. Okay, you guys are just Sarah, Tapita, and you guys are having fun there. So let me go put these cakes away. Actually, you know what? We filled the cake up now. Okay, let's see. Denim. Okay. Oh, okay. So part of America is really cold at this point, so a few of our friends in there are discussing the weather. So for those of you in the chat, if you're just subscribing, thank you for being here. It is great to have you, but I think whilst we're at it, I'm just going to move this and tidy my work surface whilst you're catching up, and I think we're going to be done with the live, because we wanted to fill the cake, which we have done. I have quite a lot to do really, because this cake should be ready for collection Saturday morning, but it's going to be a fondant cake, so it's not going to be easy to make. I have to go and crumb coat it, make sure the cake is, there is quite a bit to get through. Okay, that's all I'm saying. So yeah, there's Fredo. Okay, there's quite a bit happening in the chat, but you know what? I'll leave you to it, and when I come back, we'll probably say goodbye. Very lovely. If you're just watching this from replay, we filled and covered a cake, which we should be back to do more of that. There's 25 of you in the chat. Thank you for being here, but can I make a polite request? Just from you, if you don't mind me asking. There's 25 of you in the chat, but there's only 4 likes at the moment in time. Can I politely ask you to consider supporting the channel by just liking the video? The reason being, by liking the video, you are telling YouTube you've enjoyed your experience here, and YouTube is likely to send the video out to a few other people who may find it just as useful and valuable as you have. So please consider doing that. I know I do bang on a lot, and I kind of go off on a whim and a tangent. So please consider doing that. We're talking American shops and stores over there. Oh, sounds like a great conversation to have. If you're still in the chat, girls, boys, friends of the channel, do consider liking the video, right? Before we log out. But you know what? We've just filled the cake. It's 1:15. I have quite a lot to do. I am sure you'll be seeing more of me this week as it comes to baking and decorating. You know what? I can't do the decorating. Sarah, this is for you. If you've checked on the channel, yes, I do decorate the cakes, except I do the decoration in phases, just so that it is digestible for people on replay. And also it allows me the chance to clear up, come back and do it over. So at this moment in time, the cake is being kept in the fridge to set. Then I have to trim it before crumb coating. I'll be back later to crumb coat if time allows me. I should be able to do that perhaps just about 4 p.m., just before 4 p.m. I don't know. But right now I need to clear up, and there is actually some more baking. So if you don't mind, I will log back in and engage in the baking video, just so that the video is properly sectioned for a playback viewing experience, because otherwise all I'm doing is just standing here cleaning up and all of that, and I don't think that makes for a great experience. But I also know if you're in the chat, it can be fun to not kind of log out, and I'm sorry about that. So Lollipop darling, thank you